The neighborhood of Willow Ridge was more than just a collection of homes. It was a legacy. The streets echoed with generations of laughter, struggle, and resilience. Elders were respected, families leaned on each other, and the value of a man wasn't measured by how loud he was, but by how deeply he cared for his people. In the heart of this tight-knit community lived Zion Carter, the kind of man young boys looked up to and old folks trusted without question. Tall, broad-shouldered, and handsome, Zion carried himself with the confidence of a man raised right. His deep brown skin glistened with sweat each morning as he worked odd jobs around the neighborhood, fixing fences, helping neighbors haul groceries, or rebuilding broken porches after storms. But it wasn't just his strength or his looks that made him admired. It was his spirit. Zion had a heart the size of the city itself. He was the first to show up when someone was in trouble and the last to leave when something needed fixing. He didn't wait to be asked. Whether it was an old man needing help, raking leaves, or a single mother trying to move furniture, Zion just appeared, quiet, steady, dependable. Still, no matter how many people he helped, there was only one person who could bring a different kind of light to his face: Brielle. Jackson, who everyone simply called Brie. Brie wasn't like the other girls in Willow Ridge. She was bold, full of life, and sharp with her tongue. Always quick with a comeback, she had a laugh that turned heads and a walk that made even the wind pause. But she wasn't all sass. She was thoughtful, wild-spirited, and unapologetically herself. Brie never tried to fit in, and that's exactly why she stood out. She and Zion had been inseparable since they were kids. When other children teased her for not knowing who her daddy was, Zion stood in front of her like a shield. When she was sad, he made her laugh. When she fell, he helped her up, dusted her off, and told her to try again. They grew up running barefoot through the alleys, climbing trees, racing through the park, and sharing secrets under the shade of the old oak tree behind Zion's backyard. "You're gonna be someone, Z," Brie used to say, reaching her arms toward the sky, like a king or a superhero. "And what about you?" Zion would ask, grinning. "I'm gonna travel the world, see everything, maybe even fall in love with a prince." Zion would laugh. "Then I guess I'll have to fight that prince to make sure he treats you right." Back then, they didn't think about the future too hard. They just lived in each other's laughter, not knowing how deeply they were becoming part of each other's hearts. As Zion grew older, he became the pride of Willow Ridge. Girls whispered about him behind their notebooks. Mothers tried to get their daughters to bake extra pies when he walked by. He was the kind of man people hoped their daughters would marry: respectful, grounded, real. But Zion never paid much mind. No matter who smiled at him or tried to flirt, he was either busy helping someone, or he was with Brie. They were still best friends, even as life started to grow more complicated. And the older they got, the more people began to wonder, were they just friends or something more? One warm evening, Zion sat in the backyard sharpening the blade of his old lawnmower. Brie sat across from him on a blanket, picking at the grass, a teasing glint in her eye. "You know," she said, tilting her head with a smirk, "if I had $1 for every girl who tried to catch your attention, I'd be living in a penthouse, downtown." Zion didn't even look up. "And if I had $1 for every time you brought this up, I'd own the whole city." Brie burst out laughing, her gold hoops catching the last of the sun. "I'm serious, Z. They'd be losing their minds over you. And you just mow lawns and mind your business like some retired grandpa. What exactly are you waiting for?" Zion finally looked up and grinned. "I'm waiting for you to stop talking," Brie gasped. "Wow. That's how you treat your oldest friend?" He chuckled, shaking his head. "I don't know, Brie. Maybe I just haven't met the right one yet." She looked at him for a moment, her smile fading slightly. She knew Zion better than anyone, and deep down, she had a feeling something was about to change. And neither of them was ready for it. One Friday afternoon, just as the summer heat began to settle over Willow Ridge like a warm blanket, a stranger arrived. Her name was Savannah Monroe. She didn't just walk into Willow Ridge. She glided, like a slow breeze cutting through heavy air. Heads turned, conversations paused. Even the elders on their porches squinted over their glasses. Savannah was striking. Her caramel skin glowed in the sun like polished honey. Her curls were pinned in an elegant twist that made her look like she belonged on the cover of a fashion magazine. She wore long, flowy dresses that moved like water and spoke with a voice as smooth as jazz on Sunday morning. "Who is she?" whispered Miss Cynthia at the salon. "She must be from up north," someone else replied. "I bet she's a model," murmured a teenager with wide eyes. But it wasn't just the women watching her. The men were paying attention too. And so was Zion. For the first time in his life, Zion Carter was staring. The same man who shrugged off attention like lint on his shirt was now leaning forward slightly, lips parted, as he watched Savannah walk past the corner store. She didn't giggle or blush when their eyes met. She just offered him a slow, knowing smile, like she already knew the effect she had. Zion had never chased anyone. He didn't have to. Women usually came to him, dropping hints, baking pies, asking for help with broken things that weren't broken. But Savannah didn't need anything. She didn't try to impress anyone. She didn't chase attention. And that was what pulled Zion in. So for the first time in his life, Zion pursued. He picked mangoes from old Mr. Reed's tree and left the ripest ones on Savannah's porch. He offered to carry her groceries from the market, even when it meant walking, out of his way. He carved her a wooden comb, polished, simple, elegant, and gave it to her one evening under the streetlights, his voice low, almost shy. Savannah smiled, accepted it, and said nothing. The whole neighborhood took notice. "Zion Carter is in love," said Mr. Lewis, shaking his head with a grin. "Savannah Monroe must have put a spell on him," teased the barbershop crew. "About time he found somebody," murmured the aunties at Sunday service. Even Bree noticed. She tried to play it cool, cracking jokes as usual, but every time she saw Savannah on Zion's arm, her perfect smile, her poised walk, something inside Bree felt off. Still, she kept it buried. When Zion told her one evening that Savannah had said yes to being his girl, Bree smiled the biggest smile she could manage. "That's amazing, Z," she said, pushing down the lump in her throat. "I knew this day would come." Zion grinned, sitting beside her on the bench outside her house. "I feel different, Bree. Like my life is finally starting." Bree nodded, staring at the sky, her fingers tightening on her knees. "She's lucky," she said quietly. "No," Zion said softly. "I think I'm the lucky one." Bree laughed and shoved him gently. "You? Please. She has no idea what she signed up for." He chuckled, but deep down, something in Bree's voice tugged at him. Something he didn't understand just yet. Neither of them knew that the winds in Willow Ridge were about to shift, and not everything beautiful stays. As the days passed in Willow Ridge, the buzz about Zion and Savannah grew louder. Folks called them the it couple. Little kids waved when they passed. Elders nodded in approval. And Bree, she kept smiling through it all, joking, teasing, pretending it didn't hurt. But something had shifted. What no one knew, not even Zion, was that Bree's world was about to change forever. One night, as the cicadas hummed outside and the streetlights flickered over cracked sidewalks, Miss Loretta, Bree's mother, sat at the edge of her bed, her face tense, hands trembling. "We're leaving, baby," she said, her voice tight. Bree blinked, confused. "Leaving? Leaving where?" "Out of Willow Ridge. First thing in the morning." "What?" Bree shot up. "Mama, what are you talking about? Why now?" Miss Loretta looked away. "I can't explain everything, but it's time. It's not safe for us to stay." "But this is my home," Bree cried. "Zion is here. My life is here." Her mother reached out, voice shaking. "I know, baby. I know this is hard, but I need you to trust me." Bree turned away, her heart thudding like a drum. Something wasn't right. Her mama wasn't the panicked type. She had lived in Willow Ridge her whole life. So why now? That night, Bree didn't sleep. As soon as her mama's breathing deepened, Bree slipped out the front door and ran. She didn't stop until she reached Zion's house, her breath sharp, her heart in pieces. When Zion opened the door and saw her, eyes wide, hair loose, cheeks wet, his chest tightened. "Bree?" he whispered. "What's wrong?" "I'm leaving," she blurted out, her voice cracking. "My mom says we gotta go in the morning." Zion's face dropped. "What? Leave? Just like that?" She nodded, choking back a sob. "She won't explain. I don't want to go, Zion. I don't." He stepped closer, grabbing her arms. "Then stay. I'll talk to her." No." She cut him off. "She won't listen." Zion's eyes welled up. "So that's it? You're just gonna disappear?" "I don't have a choice," Bree whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. They stood there, hearts raw, too full of words they couldn't say. Then Zion did the only thing he could. He pulled her into his arms and held her tighter than he ever had before. They didn't speak. Didn't need to, because both of them knew this was goodbye. The next morning, before the sun had even warmed the pavement, a black SUV rolled into Willow Ridge. Two tall men in tailored suits stepped out. They weren't from around here. That much was obvious. Zion stood at a distance as Bree and Miss Loretta climbed into the vehicle. Her bags were already packed. Her eyes found Zion's across the road, and in that one look everything between them was said. Then she was gone, and all that was left was the silence. Later that same day, Zion stood in a pressed linen shirt, trying to smile as he prepared for what should have been the happiest day of his life, his engagement celebration with Savannah. The people of Willow Ridge gathered with food, music, and praise. But Zion's heart was heavy. The girl he had laughed with under the oak tree, the one who knew his soul better than anyone, had left. And somehow, the celebration felt more like a funeral. He smiled. He danced. He played the part. But something inside him had broken and no one saw it, not even Savannah. The celebration in Willow Ridge was unforgettable. The whole block came out for Zion Carter's wedding. Aunties in gold head wraps danced to Marvin Gaye and Mays. Uncles passed around plates, stacked with ribs, greens, and cornbread. The air smelled of barbecue, incense, and sweet wine. Zion stood tall in a sharp burgundy tuxedo, his locks pulled back, a gold chain shining against his chest. And Savannah Monroe? She looked like a dream. Draped in cream silk, her beauty stopped conversations. Her skin glowed like she'd been kissed by moonlight. People whispered, Zion Dunn found himself a queen. But Zion's smile never quite reached his eyes. He told himself it was nerves. Told himself that missing Bree didn't mean anything. Told himself this was what a man was supposed to want. A fine woman, a big celebration, a future everybody approved of. But deep down, something felt wrong. As the night grew late and the DJ slowed the music, the crowd cheered and clapped as Zion lifted Savannah into his arms and carried her into the small, candle-lit room prepared for them in his parents' house. Tonight, the great Zion Carter would become a husband. The door shut. The candles flickered. Savannah turned to him with a soft smile. "You nervous?" she asked playfully. Zion smiled faintly, his heart thudding. "A little." She stepped closer, running a hand along his chest. "Don't be. I want this." But as their bodies pressed together as Zion moved to kiss her, something shifted. Savannah's smile faltered. Her hand trembled, and then she screamed, a scream so sharp, so full of terror it sliced through the music and laughter outside. Chairs scraped, glasses dropped. The whole block went silent. The door flung open. Savannah ran into the yard barefoot, her silk robe barely clinging to her body. Her face was wild with fear. "He's not normal," she cried. "Something's wrong with him. He's not human." Gasps rose from the crowd. What happened? Did he hurt her? She saw a ghost or something? Zion stood frozen in the doorway, shirt unbuttoned, confusion and shame written across his face. His chest rose and fell in disbelief. Savannah's mother rushed to her side. "What happened, baby? I can't explain." Savannah sobbed. "I can't be with him, I won't." And just like that, she left. Gone. By morning, Savannah Monroe had vanished from Willow Ridge. The whispers started that same day. She couldn't handle him. Something's off with Zion. Maybe he's cursed. Zion kept quiet. He walked with his shoulders straight. He still helped folks, still smiled. But inside, he was unraveling. Then came Alicia Banks, loud, fearless, all curves and confidence. "If Savannah ran, I won't," she said boldly at the corner store. "Let me at him." She went into his house that night by midnight. She left crying. Then it was Tony, then Keisha, then Marisol. One by one they came, claiming they could handle what Savannah couldn't. One by one they fled, shaken, scared, speechless. Some left town completely. Others refused to speak on what happened. But all of them shared one truth. Zion Carter was not like other men. The talk became louder, harsher. "Something's wrong with him. He's cursed. Mothers, keep your daughters away." The man once admired and was now avoided. And Zion Carter, the helper, the protector, the beloved son of Willow Ridge, became a ghost in his own home. No one looked him in the eye anymore. No one invited him over. The girls who used to giggle and dream now crossed the street when he passed, and for the first time in his life, Zion Carter was truly alone. Weeks passed in Willow Ridge, but the whispers didn't fade. They grew louder. No woman stayed with Zion Carter. No one could handle him. Some said he was cursed. Others said he wasn't a man at all. And behind closed doors, folks prayed to keep their daughters safe. But the person hurting most wasn't the women. It was Zion's mother, Miss Evelyn. She had watched her son fade, day by day, from the proud, lively man she raised to a silent, shadowed figure who barely spoke. His shoulders hung low. His laugh was gone. He moved like he was carrying something heavy on his back. One morning, as the sky turned gray with rain clouds, Miss Evelyn made a choice. She marched into Zion's room, grabbed his hand, and said, "We going to see Papa Elijah?" Zion didn't argue. He had nothing left to lose. Papa Elijah lived deep in the woods beyond Willow Ridge, in a clearing surrounded by weeping willows and rustling pines. Folks said he spoke to spirits, said he knew things no man should know. Some feared him. Others worshipped him, but all agreed he was the truth. The moment they stepped into his yard, Zion felt a chill crawl up his spine. Wind moved even though the air was still. The leaves whispered. Something unseen was watching. Papa Elijah sat outside his wooden shack, rocking in a creaky chair, eyes closed, as if he already knew they were coming. "You took too long," he said without opening his eyes. Zion froze. "You came for answers," the old man continued, finally lifting his gaze, two milky white eyes that glowed with something ancient. Miss Evelyn squeezed her son's hand. Papa Elijah rose slowly, his cane tapping against the porch. "Come, the fire's ready." Inside, the air was thick with smoke and herbs. Candles flickered around a circle of white chalk. In the center sat a bowl of water and a bundle of bones wrapped in cloth. Zion sat cross-legged on the floor. His chest was tight. He could barely breathe. Papa Elijah looked him over, then said softly, "You are not alone, Zion Carter. You never have been." Zion blinked. "What?" The old man stirred the bowl of water. The flames danced. The air pulsed. "There is something bound to you," Papa Elijah said. "A spirit, a wife. She claimed you the moment you were born, and she has sworn that no other woman will ever touch you." Miss Evelyn gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Zion stared. "What are you saying?" Papa Elijah's voice dropped lower, heavier, ancient. "She walks with you, sleeps beside you, watches you. Every woman who comes near you, she drives them away. She keeps them from accepting your body. That's why they scream. That's why they flee. She is not mortal. and she does not share. Zion's heart pounded like a drum. He thought of Savannah, Alicia, Tony, all the women who had run. He clenched his fists. Then how do I get rid of her? Papa Elijah let out a long, pained sigh. Spirit wives don't let go easily, son. You were claimed before you even had a name. He reached into a pouch and tossed cowrie shells across the floor, studying how they fell. Then he shook his head. Your path is blocked. Unless something extraordinary happens, something that defies her power, you will never be free. Zion's voice cracked. So that's it? I live alone forever? Papa Elijah's gaze met his, hard and slow. That's not what I said. I said she won't let you go willingly. But fate sometimes has other plans. Zion stood in silence, the weight of it all crashing over him like a wave. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't a lie spread by bitter women. This was real, and now he knew. No matter how strong he was, no matter how kind, no matter how much he loved, he was shackled to something no one could see, and it would take a miracle to break free. The ride out of Willow Ridge was long and silent. Bree Jackson sat in the back seat of a black SUV, arms folded tightly across her chest. Her mother, Miss Loretta, stared out the window, lips pressed tight like she was holding back a lifetime of secrets. Trees blurred by. Cities came and went. Bree said nothing, but her heart was screaming. She couldn't stop seeing Zion's face, the pain in his eyes, the way his voice broke when she told him goodbye. She had never seen him like that before, and now, she might never see him again. After nearly a full day of driving, the car finally slowed as the road turned red beneath the tires. Bree sat up, blinking in disbelief. They were entering Kingston Heights. The streets were wide, clean, and paved with imported brick. The homes were massive, not just rich, regal. Ivy curled over stone walls. Fountains danced in front of marble. Steps. Bree's eyes widened as golden gates slowly opened, revealing a mansion unlike anything she had ever seen. This wasn't just wealth. This was royalty. She stepped out slowly, her sneakers crunching on gravel. Guards in crisp uniforms stood at attention. Beyond them, a woman in a flowing emerald dress ran forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. My baby, she whispered. My sweet baby girl. Before Bree could react, the woman pulled her into a trembling embrace, sobbing into her shoulder. I've searched for you every single day. Behind her stood a tall man in a royal blue suit, salt in his beard, power in his posture. We're your parents, he said quietly. You're home now, Bree. Bree pulled back, stunned. What are you talking about? The woman, Queen Ramona, gently touched Bree's neck, brushing aside her curls. Bree gasped. There, behind her ear, was a small birthmark, shaped like a teardrop, one she had never thought twice about. The Queen's eyes filled again. That mark belongs to the royal bloodline of Kingston Heights. You were stolen from us when you were just a baby. Bree stumbled back, shaking her head. No, that's not true. My mom... She pointed toward Miss Loretta. She raised me. She loved me. The king, a quiet storm of strength, stepped forward. She worked in our palace, as a maid. She took you. We never stopped searching. Bree's breath hitched. The room spun. Miss Loretta stood nearby, eyes lowered, saying nothing. I need to hear it from her, Bree whispered. Within the hour, 2 guards led Bree down a quiet hallway, into the palace's underground holding rooms. They stopped at a small iron-barred cell. There, sitting on a bench in silence, was Miss Loretta. Her face was bare. Her shoulders slumped. For the first time in her life, Bree saw her mother look small. Bree ran to the bars, voice shaking. Tell me it's not true. Miss Loretta looked up, tears already brimming. I can't. Silence. Then through sobs, she said the words that broke everything. I stole you. Brie's knees buckled. I loved the king, Loretta confessed. I was just a servant, invisible. But when I saw you, I thought, if I couldn't have him, I could have you. A piece of him. You lied to me my whole life, Brie whispered. You kept me from the truth. Miss Loretta pressed her forehead to the bars. But I loved you, Brie, more than life. You were my baby too. Brie stepped back, eyes full of heartbreak. That wasn't love, Mama, that was obsession. Miss Loretta said nothing, just let the tears fall, and Brie, once a loud, bold, fearless girl from Willow Ridge, turned and walked away in silence. Later that night, back in her new palace room, Brie curled into herself on a bed softer than clouds. The silk sheets couldn't soothe her. The gold-framed mirrors didn't impress her. All she wanted was the boy who held her hand when nobody else would. The boy who never once lied to her. The boy who would have walked through fire to keep her safe, Zion, but he was gone, and even with a crown waiting on her head, she had never felt more lost. Back in Willow Ridge, the world kept turning, but for Zion Carter, everything had come to a halt. The streets that once echoed his name now went quiet when he passed. The same neighbors who used to wave from porches now looked away. Women who once giggled and flirted now crossed to the other side of the road. He had become a ghost in the place that raised him. No one said it out loud, but he could feel it in their eyes. That's the one. The one no woman could keep. The one with the curse. Zion did his best to ignore it. He still helped where he could. Still mowed lawns for elders and fixed broken porch lights. But the warmth was gone. At night, he lay on his mattress and stared at the ceiling. And every time he closed his eyes, he saw Brie. Her laugh, her fire, her tears as she told him goodbye. She had been the only one who never feared him. The only one who looked at him like he was whole. But she was gone. And so was the life he once knew. One evening, as the sky turned a deep indigo and crickets began their nightly song, Zion sat with his mama, Miss Evelyn, on their front porch. He turned to her, voice low. Mama, I can't stay here no more. Miss Evelyn looked at him quietly. You sure? He nodded. I've tried. I really have. But there ain't nothing left for me here now. A long silence passed. Then Miss Evelyn swallowed hard, reached for his hand and held it tight. The world outside Willow Ridge is big, baby. It ain't always kind. But I raised you to walk through fire if you had to. If your peace ain't, here then you go find it. Zion squeezed her hand. I'll make you proud. She smiled, but tears welled up anyway. You already do. The next morning, before the sun even touched the pavement, Zion Carter packed a small duffel, tucked his late father's watch into his wrist, and walked to the edge of Willow Ridge. He took one last look back, at the porch where he'd eaten Sunday dinners, at the corner where he and Brie used to race bikes, at the oak tree that still held their carved initials. Then he turned and walked away. He didn't know exactly where he was headed, just that his cousin Darius, a strong, charismatic man he hadn't seen in years, had always told him, "Come out to Silver Grove, Z. There's opportunity here. There's healing. Here, you won't be judged for who you were, only who you're trying to become." So that's where he went. The road to Silver Grove was long and dusty. He rode a crowded bus through farmland, across city lines, and past unfamiliar towns. But with every mile, something inside him shifted. The silence no longer felt heavy. It felt free. Here, no one knew about Savannah. No one whispered about his body. No one looked at him like he was wrong. By the time he stepped off the bus and breathed in the sharp, clean air of Silver Grove, he felt lighter. Waiting at the terminal was Darius Carter, all smiles and swagger, arms wide. "Look at you." Darius laughed, pulling him in for a tight hug. "Took you long enough," Zion chuckled. "Yeah, well, life's been wild." Darius pulled back, clapping him on the back. "Well, you made it, and trust me, out here, You get to write your story all over again. Zion looked around at the bustling streets, the open markets, the music spilling from storefronts. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. What he didn't know was that fate was already working behind the scenes, because just across the city, behind palace walls, beneath a golden skyline, Bree was here too, and destiny was far from done with them. Life in Silver Grove moved fast, but Zion Carter kept his pace slow. He spent his mornings training with the local martial arts group where his cousin Darius was a leader, and his evenings working small jobs for folks in the neighborhood, fixing fences, painting porches, carrying groceries for elders. Within weeks, word spread. Zion Carter? That new guy? He's solid. Quiet but real, respectful. And strong too. Did you see him lift that engine block by himself? He wasn't looking for attention, but people noticed. The women noticed too. But this time, Zion didn't chase. Not because he was scared, but because he was tired of giving pieces of himself to people who didn't see him. All of him. Still, something in him had shifted since he left Willow Ridge. He didn't hear whispers when he walked. Didn't feel fear in people's eyes. Didn't see judgment in every passing glance. But that hollow space in his chest, it was still there. And her name was Bree. Meanwhile, inside the palace at Kingston Heights, Bree was learning what it meant to be royalty. She wore silk gowns now. A personal chef brought her breakfast. Guards escorted her everywhere, even when she just wanted air. But no matter how grand the halls or golden the doors, nothing felt like home. She missed Willow Ridge, the cracked sidewalks, the old music, the way folks called out to you by name. Most of all, she missed him. Every sunset, Bree would sneak past the palace walls, dressed down in jeans and a hoodie, walking through the edges of the city, not searching for anything, just trying to feel human again. And then one evening, it happened. She was wandering through a quiet street near the community training center, drawn by the sounds of laughter and clacking wooden staffs. She peeked around the corner and saw a group of men sparring, moving in rhythm. And there, at the center of it all, his back turned, sweat glistening on his deep brown skin, was Zion. Bree's heart stopped. No, it couldn't be. Not here. Then he turned, and their eyes locked. The world fell away. Time stopped. Neither of them moved. Neither of them breathed. In that moment, nothing else existed but them. Then Bree ran, her feet barely touching the ground, and threw herself into his arms. Zion caught her instantly, gripping her like a man who had just found the thing he'd thought he'd lost forever. Bree, he whispered, burying his face into her curls. Is this real? She looked up at him, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm here. He cupped her face, searching every inch like he didn't trust his own eyes. And then slowly they both began to smile. That deep, knowing smile that only two souls who belong to each other can share. Zion led Bree to a quiet garden behind the training center, a small corner filled with flowers and stars above. They sat side by side, knees touching, breath shaky. So, Zion said gently, where'd you go after Willow Ridge? Bree hesitated. I ended up somewhere unexpected. I'm still trying to figure it all out. Zion nodded, not pressing. She looked at him. What about you? What happened after her? Zion leaned back with a tired sigh. It didn't work out. And not just with her. Something's always been wrong, Bree. Something I couldn't explain. She stared, waiting. But he didn't continue. Not yet. Instead, he turned to her, eyes soft. Right now, I just want to be here. With you. They sat in silence. Hands slowly found each other, fingers laced, and as the stars above them blinked softly in the dark, the space between them closed. Then, like the universe had been waiting for this moment, their lips met. Soft, slow, but filled with every unspoken word, every missed moment, every silent ache. This wasn't just a kiss, it was a homecoming. That night in the garden behind the training center, beneath Silver Grove's soft city stars, Zion Carter and Bree Jackson sat, in silence, but it wasn't awkward, it was holy. Their foreheads rested together. Their hands stayed clasped. Their breaths found a rhythm only they could hear. It had been years since they had seen each other. But somehow, sitting together like this, it felt like no time had passed at all. Later, Zion walked Bree home, not to some apartment or hotel, but toward the outer gates of Kingston Heights Palace. He raised an eyebrow. "You living here?" Bree smiled nervously. "It's a long story." "I got time," he said, but she didn't answer. Not yet. Not tonight. Instead, she turned to him just before the gate. "Come see me tomorrow?" Zion nodded. "You don't even have to ask." She smiled, and for a long moment neither moved. Then she stood on her tiptoes and kissed him again, soft and sure, before slipping past the gates, guards watching in silence. Zion stood frozen for a while, hand to his lips, mind racing, heart still. The next night Bree returned, no palace gowns, just herself. And this time she didn't meet Zion at the garden. She came to his room. They didn't speak at first. Words weren't necessary anymore. They sat on his bed, her hands tracing the lines in his palms, his fingers brushing her jaw, her collarbone, her back. Zion's heart was pounding. He had been here before, with women who wanted him, until they didn't, until something happened that scared them off. But this time, something was different. There was no fear in Bree's eyes, no flinch in her hands. He touched her like a man afraid to break a dream, but she pulled him closer, kissed him deeper, and when the moment came, the moment that used to fill him with dread, there was no scream, no sudden tears, no retreat, only connection, only peace, only love. When it was over, they lay tangled beneath thin white sheets. Her head rested on his chest, fingers drawing slow circles over his heartbeat. Zion stared at the ceiling, breath uneven, not from fear, from release, from finally being free. "Bree," he said, voice low, almost a whisper. She lifted her head to look at him. "There's something I need to tell you." She sat up, sensing the weight in his tone. Zion took a deep breath. "You're the first woman who's ever stayed." Her brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then spoke the truth that had haunted him for years. "No woman ever made it through with me. They'd run before it even began. Cry, panic, say something was wrong with me." Bree blinked, speechless. "After Savannah left," he continued, "my mom took me to see a man, Papa Elijah. He told me I was marked, said I had a spirit wife, a being that had claimed me since birth, that no real woman would ever be able to touch me, love me, or keep me." Bree stared at him, heart aching. Zion looked away. "I thought I was cursed, broken. But last night?" He met her eyes. "You didn't run." She shook her head. "Zion, maybe," he said softly. "Maybe it wasn't a curse. Maybe I was just waiting for the right woman." Tears welled in Bree's eyes, not from sadness but from the weight of what they had just broken through together. She took his hand. "You're not cursed. You're not broken. You were never the problem." Then, with a trembling voice, she added, "And there's something I haven't told you either." They sat in the quiet of Zion's room, the air heavy, but not with fear, with truth. Zion had just shared his deepest shame, the thing that had isolated him, haunted him, left him questioning his own body, his worth, his soul. And Bree hadn't flinched. Now it was her turn. She took a breath, her fingers still laced with his. "There's something I haven't told you." "Either," she said softly. Zion turned his head, sensing her shift. "The day I left Willow Ridge, it wasn't just because my mama said we had to move," she said. That wasn't even my real mama. Zion blinked. Wait, what? Bree nodded, slowly, painfully. Her name's Miss Loretta, but she wasn't my mother. Not by blood. She stole me when I was a baby. Zion sat up straight, stunned. Stole you? She worked as a maid in a palace, here in Kingston Heights. Bree swallowed. And one day she took me, disappeared, raised me like I was hers, never told me the truth. Zion's eyes searched hers. So who are your real parents? Bree's voice dropped to a whisper. The king and queen of Kingston Heights. Zion froze. What? I'm a princess, Bree said, almost like she still didn't believe it herself. My real name is Princess Brielle of Kingston Heights. The people in the palace, the guards, the gowns, they're all mine, but they don't feel like mine. Zion stared at her, mind spinning. You've been living in a palace this whole time? She nodded. Yeah, but it never felt like home. Zion ran a hand down his face. Damn. Then Bree added with a small, trembling voice. Does that change anything? Zion didn't answer right away. He just looked at her. Really looked at the girl he climbed trees with, the girl who laughed louder than anyone in Willow Ridge, the girl who stood by him when the whole world turned its back. And now, the woman who had broken the curse that haunted him for years. He reached out, cupped her face, and whispered, It doesn't change a thing. Bree's breath hitched. I don't care if you live in a palace or a two-bedroom on the south side. I don't care if you wear a crown or a hoodie. I love you, Bree. I've always loved you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I thought I loved Savannah once, Zion continued, his voice quiet. But that was attraction. You were always the one. I didn't realize it until you were gone. Bree sobbed softly and pressed her forehead to his. They sat there like that. No more secrets, no more walls. Just love. Pure. Unshaken. True. And in that moment, the past finally let go of them both. A few days later, Zion Carter stood at the base of a marble staircase in Kingston Heights Palace, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. He'd fought through ridicule. He'd faced loneliness. He'd battled a spirit no one else could see, but nothing compared to this moment. He was about to stand in front of royalty, to ask a king and queen for permission to love their daughter. Beside him stood Bree, dressed in a soft, golden gown that shimmered like sunlight. Her fingers were laced tightly with his. You good? She whispered. He swallowed. Ask me after this is over. She gave a small smile and nodded toward the open throne room doors. Let's go. They walked hand in hand through the grand hall, marble floors, towering pillars, sunlight spilling in through stained glass. Servants stepped aside. Courtiers whispered. And then they reached the thrones. Seated before them were King Malcolm and Queen Ramona. The queen's expression was warm but unreadable. The king's face was carved from stone. Zion bowed low, every muscle in his body tensed. Your Majesty, he said, steady but respectful. I stand here not as a prince, not as a noble, just as a man who loves your daughter. There was a pause so long Zion wondered if he'd even heard it aloud. Then the king finally spoke. You're the man who captured Princess Brielle's heart? Yes, sir. King Malcolm's gaze narrowed. You were once a boy from Willow Ridge, a name whispered with shame. They say women ran from you, that something followed you. Zion flinched but stood tall. That's true. The queen leaned forward. And yet here you are. Yes, ma'am, he replied. Because Bree, she didn't run. She saw me, the real me. The king leaned back, fingers steepled. And if I say no? If I tell you a common man can't have a royal daughter? Zion didn't hesitate. Then I'll still love her. I'll love her from wherever I'm allowed. Because titles don't decide my heart. She does. The silence in the room stretched again. Then slowly, a smile crept across Queen Ramona's lips, and to Zion's surprise, and so did one across King Malcolm's. Good answer, the king said, nodding. We needed to see your spine. You've got our blessing, the queen added warmly, rising to her feet. Bree exhaled sharply, joy flooding her face. She squeezed Zion's hand, and he turned toward her with quiet disbelief. He'd spent years thinking no one would ever accept him, and now he'd just been embraced by a king. News of the royal engagement between Princess Brielle and Zion Carter of Willow Ridge spread through Kingston Heights like wildfire. The streets filled with music, banners waved, drums echoed through alleys and hills. People came from far and wide to celebrate the love story that had broken curses, defied class, and reminded the world that true connection doesn't come from status. It comes from soul. But there was one final thing Bree had to do. The news traveled fast, through palace walls and across city blocks. Princess Brielle of Kingston Heights was getting married, but not to a nobleman, not to a foreign prince. She was marrying Zion Carter, a man from Willow Ridge, once whispered about, once judged, now honored. The people of Silver Grove and Kingston Heights were stunned. The palace lit up with celebration. Invitations were crafted by hand on velvet-trimmed paper. Florists began shaping entire gardens. Seamstresses raced to create the gown of a generation. But amid the noise, the joy, and the swirling chaos of wedding plans, Bree had one request, a private one. She sat across from her parents in their royal study, the queen sipping from a crystal teacup, the king reading over documents. "I want to ask for something," Bree said firmly, her voice calm but resolute. Both looked up. "I want you to release Miss Loretta." The queen lowered her cup slowly. "Brielle, she stole you." The king sighed. "She kept you from us your entire life." "I know," Bree said, "and what she did was wrong. But she also raised me. She loved me the best way she knew how, even if it was flawed." Queen Ramona looked down, conflicted. King Malcolm leaned back in his chair, studying his daughter. This woman, who had come into their lives with fire in her spirit and grace in her bones. "She took everything from us," he said. "And yet," Bree replied, "you still found me. You got me back. I came home." A long pause. Then the king closed his folder, exhaled, and gave a solemn nod. "Very well. She will be released. Under one condition, you face her and make peace on your terms." Later that afternoon, inside a quiet room with tall windows and warm light, Miss Loretta was brought in. She no longer wore a prison uniform. She looked smaller, her once proud eyes now dimmed with years of guilt. When she saw Bree, she immediately fell to her knees. "My child," she whispered, voice cracking. "You shouldn't forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me." Bree stepped forward slowly. "I'm not here to erase what you did," she said softly. "I'm here to honor what you gave." Loretta looked up, tears sliding down her cheeks. "You loved me. You gave me bedtime stories. You cheered at every spelling bee. You kissed my forehead when I cried over scraped knees and lost friends." Paused. "But you also took something from me. A name, a family, a truth I had a right to know." Miss Loretta nodded, unable to speak. "I've carried that wound in silence," Bree continued, "and it shaped me. But I'm not going to carry hatred with me into my marriage or into my future." She reached out a trembling hand. "I forgive you." Loretta sobbed as she took her hand, pressing it to her lips. "I'm so sorry," she whispered again and again. "I know," Bree replied gently, "and that's why I can let go." When word spread that Princess Brielle had freed her captor out of compassion, the kingdom didn't react with outrage. They reacted with awe. They saw not just a future queen, but a woman of rare depth, a woman shaped by pain, yes, but defined by love. And in the quiet halls of Kingston Heights, Zion waited for her with a heart more full than he ever imagined. Back in Willow Ridge, people gathered around porch radios and cracked TV sets, holding their breath. The headline buzzed like lightning through the city. Zion Carter of Willow Ridge to wed Princess Brielle of Kingston Heights. At first, no one believed it. Zion Carter? The same boy they once called cursed? The same man women had whispered about in beauty shops and barber shops. The same outcast they crossed the street to avoid. That Zion Carter was marrying a princess? But it was true. And as more photos surfaced, of Zion in a tailored black tuxedo standing in palace gardens, holding the hand of a radiant young woman in royal gold, mouths fell open and eyes filled with tears. Even those who had judged him hardest stood up and clapped. In Kingston Heights, the palace was transformed into a vision of light. Gold petals lined the walkways. Gospel choirs rehearsed under moonlight. Chefs flew in from New Orleans, Lagos, and Charleston to create a feast that bridged worlds. Darius wore a midnight blue suit and stood proudly as best man. Queen Ramona oversaw every detail with precision and joy. King Malcolm paced quietly, hiding emotion behind his dignified stare. But the moment that silenced the crowd came when Zion stepped out to the altar. Gone was the man who once walked with shame. He stood now in royal cloth trimmed in silver, a lion's crest over his heart, eyes shining like sunrise. Then the music swelled, and everyone turned, because Brie had arrived. No tiara, no diamonds, just a wrap of golden silk that shimmered like fire, her natural curls flowing behind her, skin glowing with quiet power. She walked slowly, her eyes locked on Zion's, and in that gaze was every laugh they'd shared under the old oak tree, every tear shed in silence, every kiss that had stitched their souls together. Zion's throat tightened. He had never seen anything more beautiful. When she reached him, he took her hands, and they turned toward the royal elder who would bless their union. He asked them both, "Do you come here of your own will?" "Yes," Brie whispered. "With everything I am," Zion replied. They spoke no vows from a script. Instead, Brie turned to him, voice steady. "You are not what the world called you. You are more. You are love wrapped in strength. And I will never let you walk alone again." Zion took a breath, fighting emotion. "I once thought I was cursed, that no one could love me fully. But you proved that love isn't scared of shadows. It walks through them." And then under the golden sky, as choirs sang and wind danced through the trees, they kissed. And the crowd, nobles, villagers, Willow Ridge elders, palace guards, rose to their feet in thunderous applause. Back in Willow Ridge, an old neighbor, Miss Harriet, who once whispered about Zion, clutched a tissue to her face. "I always knew that boy had something special," she said, half laughing, half crying. And in Kingston Heights, a new era began. Zion was no longer just the boy who had been rejected. He was now Prince Zion Carter, husband, leader, and the man who reminded the world that love, when true, fears nothing. Years passed in Kingston Heights, but the story of Prince Zion Carter and Princess Brielle only grew brighter. They ruled not from golden thrones, but from the hearts of the people. Zion, once a man buried in shame, now walked with dignity, a protector, a builder, a king in all but title. Brie, once a girl raised in secrets, now glowed with power and grace. She spoke at schools. She opened shelters. She taught young girls that their crowns didn't need to be shiny, just strong. Together they changed the kingdom. They held town hall meetings in the palace courtyard. They rebuilt bridges, literal and emotional, between Kingston Heights and Willow Ridge, and they brought both worlds closer. But their greatest joy? It wasn't power, or legacy, or headlines. It was the sound of little feet racing through the palace hallways. Their daughter Zora had Zion's eyes, deep, thoughtful, steady. Their son Malik had Brie's laugh, loud, warm, fearless. The palace rang with laughter, with spilled juice, with bedtime stories told in Zion's low voice and lullabies hummed by Brie under the moonlight. They were parents, lovers, best friends, soulmates. The people never forgot. Every year on the anniversary of their wedding, Willow Ridge held a block party in their honor. Folks danced, grilled, shared stories, and every time someone doubted their worth, their journey, their heartbreaks, their own love story, the elders would say, "Let me tell you about Zion Carter, the man they once called cursed, and the woman who proved love don't run. Let me tell you about Brie. Because some stories aren't just told. They're lived, they're earned, and they echo forever. And so the legend of Zion and Brie became more than a fairy tale. It became truth, that real love waits, real love heals, and when the time is right, everything will fall into place.